All right, we are back. Episode 10 of Chasing 69, a New York Jets podcast. I am Blake Pace alongside Teddy Pristash. Before we get into everything today, which this is going to be our big 2022 NFL schedule debate or conversation now that we have a schedule in front of us. Make sure, before we get into all of that, to follow us over on Twitter at NYJ_Chasing69. Shout out to Teddy. We have been fucking shooting to the moon with these followers. I think it was
almost
only
200.
A few weeks ago, we were talking about getting to 50, and now we're at the 200. So
I know maybe we'll
us
start our OnlyFans once we get to 250.
I know. We'll join a couple other Jets Twitter people in doing that.
I didn't know who you were talking about at first, and now I do.
You do. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This episode will finally be back up on YouTube because thank God that Zoom isn't fucking us anymore. So we'll be back on the YouTube for all of our 5 views there. But if you want to see our pretty faces, Teddy, you've been pretty consistent with this backdrop now.
I know. Well, it's been my computer background for about, 10 years. No, that's not true. Like 5 years, 3 years, ever since I've had this computer. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really like when it was just like my stupid guest room, I like it better when it looks like I'm like somewhere crazy.
I gotta find out what I can put up on this backdrop or I want to get something.
Yeah, it looks like you're like, I don't even know where you are.
I'm in my bedroom. That's now also my office space.
We're just gonna start describing how the Zoom looks for all the people listening.
Yeah, I love. Well, most like 95% of the people that listen to this listen to it and not watch it. So let's just skip over that. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. Teddy's on Twitter at Teddy Huncho. I'm at Blake Andrew Pace. Getting back on my writing, I dropped the ball the last few weeks for a few different reasons, but picking back up on that. Teddy, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I'm, worn out, working like a dog, but yep. I got this great Jets podcast that I get to do once a week. So, the schedule came out, and I don't know why everyone says the same thing about the schedule, which is like, we already knew what teams we were going to play. And I'm kind of like the opposite, where like they release the opponents, and I like need it to be in order for it to like really come together for me, Yeah,
because in your head you can start building up like this is what we're gonna do in September. Right. And this is how we build the kind of train rolling. So
I don't even really let the schedule like hit me. I mean, I knew like who we were playing, obviously, but I don't really like let it like sink in until it comes out. And also, everyone like loves to be like the NFL. I don't know why they drag this out and they can't just release it. And it's like, well, we've all been talking about it for about 2 weeks straight. So that's why they drag it out, because everyone obviously talks about it and wants the leaks. And it's just like, it's like we like NFL fans complain about it, but then we're the reason that they're doing it because it's obviously so successful, because we all just talk about the NFL nonstop.
Exactly. Yeah. They know that we're not going to talk about anything else. So they're like, well, let's just build up the suspense and make that like, it's like the jersey numbers we were talking about last week. It's like people just care. They care more than they should. And it's about every single aspect. We've spent the last 7 days on Twitter talking about Zach Wilson's thighs, and how beefed up he's looking. So it's like, we're just coming up with things to pretend that we care about, but we do care about, I guess. I don't know. To me,
no, I care about it. Well, I don't care about Zach Wilson's thighs, really, I guess, but I care about the schedule.
You know what's really funny? I haven't looked at what the Colts schedule is.
I was wondering like how much you were going to talk about the Colts schedule, but
I haven't seen it at all. I think I looked through it. I don't remember it. I know when we play Carson Wentz, I think it's like week 8 or 9. So I know that we get the Wentz revenge game then, but
that'll be a fun day for you.
I can't tell you. Like, I know way more about the Jets schedule than this one, but
it's because you're a Jets fan now.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Jets fan until September rolls around. Teddy, we're gonna pause this real quick, and I'm gonna do a quick tee out because I know what my dog is doing.
Okay.
He's gonna whine until he gets whatever toys under the bed or whatever he's looking for. Where is he?
I think we should keep this in. Let me tell you a little story, folks, about a man named George.
What are you doing? Come on.
And I went on down to the George. I don't know what I'm saying here.
I can't tell if he's whining because he's stuck under my bed, but he also won't come out of it. So we're just going to continue.
Any idea what we were saying?
Oh, fuck. No. Oh, I was just going to kick it over to talking about housekeeping and how there's not much of any. So I'll just do that. I'm going to time mark that 7:27. Okay, cool. So Teddy, as we do with every episode, we like to kick things off with a little bit of housekeeping, but things have been pretty quiet on the Jets front. We've signed Jermaine Johnson. That's nice. We've talked about the importance of no drama with rookie contracts. We've got two of these guys under wrap now, two of our first rounders. So nice to see him kind of put the pen to paper and get things done. But other than that, it's been that. And Zach Wilson's beefed up, right? I don't think we've missed much else.
I don't know if Sauce officially had number one last week when we talked, but now he officially has number one. So I think that's pretty cool. But
I saw Bryce Hall took 20, I believe. And then
Breece Hall?
Or Breece Hall.
Yeah, they get them confused. But
yeah. Oh god.
Yeah, I like that a lot better than 35 for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, here we go about these jersey numbers again.
I know. Yeah, we don't need to spend time talking about this. Let's get into the schedule. We're going to kind of break it down by month or certain stretches. I do want to know because I don't want to give my overall thoughts until we get to the end. But like when you saw the schedule, did it make you feel better about the Jets season, worse, or kind of indifferent?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same. I know that it's like pretty classic to, you look at the schedule, like, what teams you're going to play, which ones are supposed to be good, which ones are supposed to be bad,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it ever really works out like that. Like I'm kind of just like an anti like strength of schedule guy. Excuse me. Cause I mean, like, look at like last year, we won 5 games, but it's like, no one would have looked at the schedule and been like, oh, well, they're going to be like the Titans. And I mean, maybe they would have said the Bengals, but not really like by the time we played them. And I think number one, it comes down to like, you don't know like what teams are going to still be good or become bad, or, you don't know what's going to go on there. And then we also don't know what the Jets are going to do. Like, you're the type of guy who always says that the Jets still have a really bad roster, which is just insane.
When did I say that?
You said they have like a bottom roster in the league, but it's like
in the AFC, their roster does not match with the top tier of teams.
Yeah.
They're closer to the bottom half than the upper half.
Okay, I like that better. But it's just like, it all comes down to, can these guys that are question marks and that are hopefuls like not stink and like be stars, So it's just one of those things where it's like looking at the schedule, and I mean, I'll come out and say it, like, we're going to go through month by month, but like the beginning of the schedule seems a lot harder than the end of the schedule, like pre-buy and post-buy are very different. But I just don't really like, I don't know. It just doesn't really like bother me that much, I guess, just because of how it is. But at the same time, like, how many times has there been a team who has an easy part of the schedule and a weak part of the schedule? And like the Dolphins last year, for example, like you can have a tale of two seasons just because of the way your schedule lands. So
yeah,
I definitely don't love that. Like, it seems a lot harder in the first 9 games than it does in the last 8. Is that math right? Yeah, 17. Yep. But it is what it is. I don't think it really changes my expectations, because the expectations are all on like the question mark. We need enough of our question marks to hit, as opposed to like, we just don't have a good enough team to beat good teams.
Right. And that's the thing. We're doing this, it's May 18th when this podcast comes out. If we get into August and all of a sudden key players in the AFC North are all just injured, that changes what this schedule looks like. Because we do take a look at it, and those first 2 months and first 9 weeks, they suck. They're not fun. But what I will say is important when looking at this schedule is we know the importance of the Jets starting out strong. And it's been something that's been talked about all offseason. It's been talked about for years, honestly, with the Jets. It's being in the hunt by the time November comes around. Can you at least still be competitive? Is your season still alive by the end of the first 2 months? And when you look at the schedule, it's an uphill battle. Now it's not impossible, but when I just take a look at it and I think that's it's just because from what I've heard from other Jets podcasts or newsletters or what I subscribe to, this is something the organization cares a lot about. It's about starting off the season strong. And so when you're given this schedule and you kind of see it's like, okay, competitive division in the AFC North through the first 4 weeks. And then, okay, tough divisional games, but something that you hope you win. You've got to travel to Denver. You got to travel to Green Bay. Things get tough. But another thing that you said that was important is, all of these question marks with the Jets, they have to pan out. One of the things we're going to go through when we look at each specific month is some of the just more enjoyable matchups to watch. And obviously one of the ones I'm most excited about, and I'm sure everybody is what's Sauce Gardner going to look like, defending the top, the top wide receivers in the league. So, but what if he doesn't pan out in his first year the way we expected to? Then those matchups don't matter anything. So there's a ton of question marks for the Jets. But the biggest thing is avoiding a slow start. And that just seems to be from top to bottom in the organization, like one of the most important things for them. And I understand if you finish hot in the second half of the season, and there's going to be a game where you beat a team like Tennessee last year, where it's like, okay, we didn't expect to beat these guys, but we're in the game, we win it. That flips a little bit of momentum. Hopefully you can do that in these first 4 weeks. But you think about last year and how it started off against the tough defenses of Carolina, New England, Denver. Those games were brutal. And you hope to avoid something like that starting off this season.
Yeah, and I mean that is one thing about this schedule. Like as hard as it does kind of seem, I still think it's easier than last year's schedule, which was just a brutal schedule all the way through, it seemed. And what you're saying about the hot start, I mean, it's so true. And like you're right, it's like, okay, let's say you start 1-7, like sure, there's a chance you could win 8 games and finish 10 see, all my math's getting fucked up, but whatever. But
17 games really does mess things up now, because our entire life.
It's so easy when it's 8 + 8 is 16,
yep.
And then you just work from there. But it's like if we're sitting here at 1-6 again, at 7 weeks in the season, none of us Jets fans are going to be feeling the way we do now, and it's like, sure, maybe you can really win a majority of the games, but you're just setting yourself up to a point where it's like, okay, well now if we lose 1, 2, 3 games out of these last 9 or 10, it's like, well, it doesn't even matter, So it's just, I think we all have the same kind of litmus test of like, maybe you don't have to make the playoffs, but we got to start being in the graphic, when they start showing it around Halloween, right, and it's barely past the halfway mark of the season, I don't want to be, even if we're 3-5, you know what I mean? It's like, that's a lot better than 1-7, So it's just like, you're right. It's very important, but let's get into it, because I'm really excited to talk about this first 4 months or 4 weeks.
The first 4 weeks is crazy because it's just the AFC North. It's the entire division. I feel like schedules don't usually play out like this, where you're literally just getting an entire division. Maybe I don't pay attention enough to that, but I was surprised. I was like, the entire division and just the month is gone.
I was surprised too. Yeah. So basically we start off the season week 1 against Baltimore, week 2 against Cleveland, week 3 against Cincinnati, week 4 against Pittsburgh. So it's the entire AFC North. And literally it's just like, don't you think we could have switched a couple of these around just to like not have it like that? But I mean, it is kind of funny. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it, because I don't think it's going to be as brutal as you do, but what do you think when you look at this?
When I look at it, how you look at it in May, because like you said, these teams could look so much different by the time September rolls around. I take a look at the organizations and I say, okay, over the last 2 decades, 2 of the most consistent, physical, intimidating teams or organizations are the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. They are just consistently a competitive team. They're not, Mike Tomlin's never missed the playoffs in his career. John Harbaugh and the Ravens, I know that they've had a few slumps or hit or misses, but they're consistently 2 very well-respected organizations. When you take a look at Cincinnati, the reigning AFC champions, it's no longer we get to play the Bengals. It's no, oh shit, we have to play the Bengals. We have to watch. And one of the key matchups early on, we just get to see Sauce, Jamar Chase, or T. Higgins, or whoever he's on. He's going to have some tough receivers to guard right out the gate. And you can extend that into, you know, Amari Cooper with Cleveland, or you can extend that into, you know, Pittsburgh wide receivers. That's a top matchup I look at. And it's like early test for you, Sauce. Let's go and see you out there against some of the best in the league. When you take a look at, and it's two organizations that I respect, and two, what I think is more important than organizations I respect, two always very consistently good defenses in Pittsburgh and Baltimore. And when you're an offense that needs to take that next step, and a lot is hinging on Zach Wilson here, it's just it reminds me a little bit of like okay, we have to play Carolina, New England, Denver. It's just tough defenses to play to start out a season. While you're and for the Jets, when you're a team that has so many moving parts, and this is a very new, like, there's a lot that's coming back. Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, a lot of the offensive line, Michael Carter back there, but you're adding in Garrett Wilson, new tight ends, you know, Laken Tomlinson, Breece Hall. Like, there's a lot of new parts on offense, and the preseason's fun. You get to try and experiment things. You don't really learn until you get maybe 1 month into the season. So facing tough defenses like Baltimore and Pittsburgh, I get a little worried about just saying, like, these guys are always consistently good on defense. And if you look at their depth charts, they're going to be good again this next season. So those two teams worry me. The offense of Cincinnati is just like, it's a nightmare to play. But, you know, the Jets should
and
have
the defense of Cincinnati. I mean, realistically,
yeah, it's a good defense. It is. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad one. And then Cleveland just, to me, hinges on Deshaun Watson, which, if reports came out Tuesday when we're recording this that he's expecting to be suspended for multiple games, cool. Week 2, we don't have to worry about him. So that if that holds true, I feel a lot better about the Cleveland game. I guess, you know, to finish off my rant, I see this as to me personally, a 1-3 start, with the win being over Cleveland, led by Jacoby Brissett. Very familiar with him. To me, it just comes down to being a new team with a lot of moving pieces on offense and defense. It is harder to start out the season playing consistent, good, like Harbaugh and Tomlin are going to have their teams ready. You know, this offense in Cincinnati and even the defense, like you said, those are 3 tough opponents to me, where I just go, for a team that's trying to find who they are, playing 3 teams that already know who they are is a little bit difficult to me.
Yeah, I mean, everything you say makes logical sense, I think. And obviously this is all just projection. I think it's a little funny, like the week 1 game against Baltimore. I personally like when I first see it, I don't really think of their defense, and I start thinking of their offense, you know, with Lamar Jackson and obviously losing Hollywood Brown. It seems like they don't have really as many weapons on offense, but I mean, Rashad Bateman's a good player. Mark Andrews is a stud. They've been able to run the ball, obviously. So I think week 1 is going to be a huge test for our edges, you know, and Carl Lawson and Jermaine Johnson and all these new guys that we brought in, just because I really think it's what we've been talking about kind of as this big weakness that the Jets have had, which is like the inability to, number 1, like pass rush the quarterback and get to the quarterback, and number 2, to just like set an edge and have a defense where the edge is set, you know. And so I instantly see, like, okay, well, we really need our edge guys to show up, because if Lamar Jackson starts getting outside, it's not going to be a good time. But I agree about Cleveland. You know, I think that even before the report that came out today, Deshaun Watson has to be suspended at least 2 weeks, it seems like to me. I mean, that's just like a standard, like, minimum suspension for doing something illegal, it seems. And I know that, like, we're not going to get into the whole Deshaun Watson thing, but like, at the end of the day, I mean, just for optics, the NFL has to kind of do something. They have to do something. So to me, like, I kind of expect like a 2-game suspension, 4-game suspension. You know, I mean, maybe the NFL really brings down the hammer and does something crazy, but it is kind of nice to just be like, oh, okay, we get to play Cleveland week 2, so he'll definitely be suspended. And what I also think is funny is, like, I look at Cincinnati, and that's the team that scares me the most. And it's like, and I mean, maybe I'm disrespecting the Ravens a little, but it's like last year, I would not have thought that was going to be the case, you know?
Right.
And in terms of Pittsburgh, like I get the defense thing, but I really don't see it with Pittsburgh, and I don't think their offense is really going to be there all that much with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. I mean, maybe they had Ben Roethlisberger, who was basically terrible last year, but
you mean Mitch or Kenny Pickett, right?
oh, I thought you said
no,
yeah,
Cleveland's
Mitch.
Cleveland's got Jacoby
Right,
Brissett now.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize. I knew it was
No, yeah,
Mitch.
you're good.
Yeah. Oh, and Kenny Pickett, yeah, that's cool too. I mean, I kind of hope that, like, I don't really care about Mitch Trubisky. I kind of hope Kenny Pickett is the starter for Pittsburgh right out of the gate, but I don't know. It just doesn't really scare me that much. I think for my prediction, I'm going to go 2-2. I think that, it's very possible that anything could happen. We could go 4, probably don't go 4-0, but I just think that the Browns seem to kind of just be in a state where they're not going to be doing all that great, especially with the quarterback situation. And then I think we're going to be able to steal another game, probably against the Steelers. But I think you never know. Week 1 is always a crazy time when good teams win or good teams lose and bad teams win.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an optimist. So for my prediction, I'm going to go 2-2, just because I think we're able to beat Cleveland and we're able to get one more game at least. But I don't know. I don't think it scares me as much. And I also think, like, I've just put myself in the mindset of the Jets offense is going to take that jump forward, so
yeah,
I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
I think the biggest thing that I guess we don't agree on is, I guess, Pittsburgh. Cause to me, when I look at them, I think that Mitch or Pickett is like an upgrade from Big Ben. Just like
that
what
could
we
be
saw
true
to him,
for sure.
What we saw
for
to
sure.
him last year was just like some of the worst quarterback play I've seen in a while.
I agree in terms of like playmaking, but at the end of the day, like, you have a guy who's been back there for like 18 years,
Well, and that's the thing. If it ends up being Pickett, you've got a young QB and you're a defensive minded head coach with a lot of good players on defense now and a frequent pass rush like that. That should be able to rattle him a little bit. So I could get the Pittsburgh win. We don't need to talk about the rest of the league much on this podcast because it's very Jet centric. I am so hoping, and I know it's not going to happen. I would love for Mitch to win this starting job, at least in year 1. Like I
don't know why you love Mitch so much. Everyone does. I remember that stretch though, where the Bears were just putting up like 30 a game and just like everyone just ignored it. I think he gets too much of the blame for Chicago. I don't think he's like great. I wanted the Colts to sign him before we had Matt Ryan. If you ask me, I'd rather take Matt Ryan, but Mitch, I was kind of just like, he's athletic. He can move. Doesn't have a bad arm. I don't know, but okay. So you've got 2-2 on there. I'm going to go 1-3 just because the Cleveland. Here's my other part. Cleveland is also just a very good roster. No, they are. We're putting a lot in their quarterback. But
what I will say though is, like, I think the way that their offense matches up with the Jets defense, I'd feel better playing Jacoby Brissett throwing to Amari Cooper. And what I'm trying to say is I think the run defense for the Jets can hold its own against Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, where fine. If Jacoby Brissett needs to pass to Amari Cooper, I'll live with that. But I feel like the Jets can do a good job holding up against the run game with Cleveland. So that's where I'm like, we should give a little bit more credit to the roster that they have in Cleveland, but without Deshaun and with Jacoby, I don't know. I think that's enough of a change.
The whole murkiness of just like their quarterback situation just seems to just like be putting a damper on it. And, they'll bounce back, but it is what it is. I think we should talk about other teams more on this podcast. Maybe not this specific podcast.
Talk about other teams.
But I love talking NFL, man.
We should get an AFC. We still need to do an AFC East podcast with Scott and
with our idiot friends.
Mike, with our idiot friends.
Yeah.
Like, we're not idiots.
Be fun. Well, who isn't?
Who isn't an idiot? All right. So Teddy starts off the season 2-2. I'm gonna go 1-3. Given the circumstance that Watson is suspended. Month 2, month 1 was labeled the AFC North. Month 2, I go not much easier.
Harder, maybe.
Play New England and Miami each, and then you've got road trips to Denver and Green Bay. To Teddy, I texted you earlier today. I said the most important games of the season to me are these first two against New England and Miami. To me, you at the very least have to split with these two teams. They should be looked at as, at the very least, your equals, if not your lessers. To me, we're just where the Jets are at now. And if you can't at least win one of these games, and to me, given how difficult the first 9 weeks are, you have to win the first ones. So to me, that's the trade-off here. And I know it doesn't make sense because if you're going 1-1, it shouldn't matter which one you win. But when you take a look at how the season unravels, and this is where the schedule to me is so important. If you are going to split these, you need to get those early wins against the division rivals, because it's so different between, like you said, being 1-7 versus 3-5. So, what are you, I texted you that. What are your thoughts on these early divisional games with New England and Miami?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If the Jets go into week 8 and are 1-6 or 2-4, and then they have that back-to-back with New England and Buffalo. I mean, they are both home. So you're right. It's kind of like the easier, and I'm putting quotation marks, but the easier games to win. I mean, you're right. Especially if we only have 1 or 2 wins going into it, there's really just like, at least win one. But I mean, on the flip side, if we can have 3 or 4 wins up to this point, which may be asking a lot, but it obviously then it's not as important to get those wins if you already have a couple piled up, but I think that your point about getting them early, especially because they're the home games, is exactly correct. And I also think just overall, I mean, you look at, I think 3-4 years in a row now, the Jets are 0-6 against their division. And it's just like, that's not good enough, because if you're 0-6 against the division, then you have 12 other games. I mean, you got to go 10-2 to here we go again with this math. 10-8.
I know, it's okay. I'm just letting you do it.
Oh, yes, it does. 10-8.
No, it's a 17 game schedule.
See, this
18 weeks, 17 games.
Oh, right.
I don't like
it.
Right. We spent our entire lives knowing a 16 game.
And
schedule.
I'm a math guy. Like, this shouldn't be that hard. But every time I'm saying numbers, I'm like, these don't add up. Whatever. All I'm trying to say is, it's like, we can't continue to be 0-6 in the AFC East. 1-5 doesn't seem like it's going to cut it. 2-4 maybe, but it's like, it feels like we got to at least split, and that means we're going to have to sweep one of these teams, get another win against another one, and then fuck Buffalo. They'll probably beat us twice, even though, again, I don't really subscribe to that kind of thinking, but it's just, I think you're right. But again, it's just like hard for me to really like agree with you super emphatically, just because it all just, I don't know. It just all like, it all matters so much that it's hard to just say like, these 2 games are so important.
Yeah, I think, like you said, with the history of not being able to succeed in the division, Miami's one thing. We
should be better than Miami. Like, the only excuse I feel like that the Jets possibly have is like the youngness, and just the fact that, like, okay, maybe Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, don't really like hit right off the bat. But at the same time, I mean, this is week 8. It's like, once you're 2 months into the season, like, all right, rookie, like, here we go. Like, there's no more like, okay, well, it takes him a little bit. It's like, unless you're, I mean, obviously there's more than just the first 8 games of a player's career. I get that. But it's like, the Jets are in a position where we've drafted players who need to be impacting the game right away. It's not like we took a 3rd round corner who's going to jump into that starting role and we're saying, I hope he becomes something. We took a cornerback top 5. We took the 2nd receiver off the board in the top 10. We have a 1st round edge rusher. Like the way that we're approaching this year is no longer all right, we have a couple of years to kind of get our feet under us. It's okay, we got our feet under us. Now let's rise up, and I don't know.
We're clipping that for Twitter. I like that. That was a good speech there, because I like it. You're right. You have to take this next step. And when you take a look at Miami, I mean, this should be a team. And I said, at the very least, you have to split. This should be a team that you sweep, because I'm still in belief that Zach Wilson's going to take that next step. To me, Tua is never going to be a quarterback that takes that next step. You've got a first-time head coach. You've got a
Team
bad
fuck
offensive
Tua.
line. What'd you say?
Team fuck Tua.
Team fuck Tua.
Jets fans and Dolphins fans are going nuts on Twitter every day, and it's hilarious.
I love it, and it's nice to be on this side of things too. It's nice to be on that because the Dolphins. I can't defend Tua. I'm sorry. I know there's Tua on, but like when I watch him play, and this goes back years for me. And if you're just following my Jet stuff, you know that I don't hate Tua. I just never saw him
as like a
thought,
scout. You like don't think he's a good player.
I never saw him and was like, this is going to be a good quarterback.
Blake was pounding the table for the Dolphins to take Justin Herbert a couple years ago.
I said it would be the biggest mistake of like the last 2 decades for them. And I don't know. I think so far it looks like it. But anyways, Miami's one thing. You should be able to sweep them. They're a team that's changing a little bit. Bad offensive line, new head coach, quarterback that's going to probably underperform again. New England. That's what I want to take a look at because this is a huge year for the Jets. To me, when I look at their rosters, and I understand that New England, kind of like Baltimore and Pittsburgh, over the last 2 decades, they are the label of consistency.
I'm really excited for what you're about to say. Give it to me.
When you look at the roster, the Jets have a better roster. They have more talent on their depth chart than the New England Patriots. They should go out there and they should at the very least win one of these games. And it's mostly on offense that I see the difference in talent, which I think is, defensively, no matter who's on that depth chart for New England on defense, it always seems to work out somehow. They've got rid of both their cornerbacks now. I'm sure they're going to have guys that do just fine. But when you take a look at the depth charts, the Jets have a better roster right now than New England. And so, yeah, when you take a look at that game, it's going to be on, when is it? October 30th.
Day before
Halloween. That's a very important game where the Jets can make a statement. Go out there. That's an important game because you can start to turn the tide a little bit with a big win where, it shouldn't be a fluke win. It should be a win that says we are here. We have a good roster. We have a better roster than you. I understand you're a great coach, one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach of all time, but your team can't match ours. And so it's an important game to me. I don't know.
No, yeah, you're right. And I agree. Like, that's the thing is, like, when you look at New England's roster, it does seem like they really shouldn't be as good. If you put that roster on in any other jersey in any other city, it kind of loses some of its luster, but that's kind of what Bill Belichick brings. And, the history with the Jets and just being able to consistently just kind of confuse us and, make us see ghosts and all this shit, and it's just I think that what's so important about that game and what really sticks out in my mind when I think about it is, again, we're deeper in the season now. It's week 8. And this is kind of all right, Zach Wilson and Mike LaFleur, we can't be getting bullied anymore and being outsmarted consistently just by these, oh, well, it's Bill Belichick, so what are we going to do against Bill Belichick's defense? That's not how it works. And just to reiterate my point from the beginning, it's how does a team become competitive? It's well, you gotta be able to play close games and be in these games and win these games against other kind of middle of the road teams, and it's sure, we want to beat up on the bad teams, maybe the elite teams you don't really expect to win, but it's we can't just be going in being oh, well, it's New England, so if we lose, it is what it is. It's no, dude, if we want to be what, I just think it's we're all these Jets fans, and myself included, we're all running around being oh my God, we've gotten so much better. We're going to be so good. But then it's it comes to a New England game and we're well, I kind of think they're still really good. And it's no, fuck that.
Right.
We have to show that we're able to make the improvements and play and be on that level, and it's New England hasn't been a world beater these past couple of years. They haven't,
No.
And Mac Jones sucks ass. So let's rage.
I at least like Mac a little bit, but
I know. I just
heading into this year, you should have the better quarterback, receivers. I mean, hopefully tight ends. I know that tight ends are
it's weird, but
it's whatever.
Just because they signed Jonnu and Hunter Henry to such big deals, but it's just
offensive lines. I'll give a wash just because New England always always has a good offensive line, and the Jets should have a good offensive line this year. Defense, whatever. Positional groups, I mean, linebackers, they've got you beat.
The thing
Secondary,
with
I
our
mean, we'll see.
defense is there's so many new starters that
That's the
it's
thing.
just like
So
hard to.
by week 8 or 9, whenever this is, like, we'll know what the defense is. So it's tough to really say right now. On paper, we love how it looks, but you're right. This is just the time where it's like, okay, no, we're no longer just being the team that, gets blown out by the Patriots in our stadium, at their stadium. We need to be competitive and within these games, and a ton of that does hinge on. So much of this hinges on Zach. It does. And I wanted to say that earlier and I forgot to mention it, but like, these are so many tough defenses. If you can start showing out, and even if we want to start moving into these other 2 games in this month stretch, Denver and Green Bay.
Yeah, we're going backwards a little, but that's okay.
Yeah. We jumped up to New England for a bit, but we're going to go back to those two games on the road, back-to-back weeks, going to Green Bay, going to Denver. I mean, 2 of the filthiest defenses in football, and that's already having to play the Steelers and the Ravens and the Bengals, and fuck, the Browns have a good defense too. We can't say that they don't. It's a lot of good defenses in this first half of the schedule. Traveling to Green Bay, traveling to Denver, those are 2 games that I just look at and I go, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. Like, it just, Green Bay maybe is a little different because you're like, oh, well, they don't have Devontae Adams. Their offense hasn't been, but it's like, well, they still have Aaron Rodgers. They still have Aaron Jones. They have AJ Dillon. Like,
great defense.
Rodgers will probably be able to throw it to somebody, and it's like, yeah, great. Like,
one of the best secondaries in football.
Right. And I mean, Denver, it's like, fuck, man, I would have loved to play
all of
fucking
them.
Drew Lock and
playing Denver last year would have been great.
Here comes Russell Wilson, and I got a lot of stock of Russell Wilson in my fantasy football leagues. So I don't know. It's just, it's going to be a tough road trip. It is. And these are 2 games where it's kind of funny because, like, you look, like you say, okay, Green Bay, Denver, New England, Buffalo, like, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that New England, Buffalo are the more difficult games, but then it's like, okay, well, those are at home, and those are also divisional games where there's that extra, like, importance to win. And then you have these 2 away games against 2, as far as right now, top teams in the league. So it is just a little scary, but so I'm not as confident about this stretch. I'd say I think our most likely win is going to come against New England, and our next most likely win would come against Green Bay. I guess, of course, we have to see how Denver is going to mesh, and can all these receivers be the receivers that we've thought they were going to be, and saying they're just a quarterback away. But yeah, I mean, for my prediction for this stretch, I'm going to go with 1-3, sadly.
Miami is in this stretch, though. I had because the Bills start the next stretch.
I apologize. Everybody.
So Miami's a winnable one.
All right, fuck it. I'm going 2-2 again, boy.
I'm going to go 2-2 again. I put in parentheses, I'm praying 2-2, because, like, if I don't know, to me, because I already had them starting off 1-3. If it's another 1-3, and then you're just sitting there at 2-6. So.
Yeah, I mean, now that
2-6 going into Buffalo.
I apologize because I was looking at the schedule a little wrong, and that's why I kind of was bouncing around. But yeah, the 2 divisional games you were talking about is Miami and
New England.
New England, and I'll go ahead and I'll agree with you about the importance of the Miami game. Simply because, like, that's the most winnable game you have when you look at your first 8 weeks, and it's like, I don't at all think the Dolphins are going to be like a terrible team at all. They have Tyreek Hill, they have Jalen Waddle, they have, like, okay,
decent
running
defense.
backs, good defense. Yeah.
I
mean, I think one thing to kind of hope for is Brian Flores isn't there anymore to be that defensive guy.
Right.
But again, I mean, you look at these and it's like, okay, well, if there's one game that I really think we're going to get, it's that Miami game. And then that is even kind of like, all right, well, then here we go. Like, show off, like prove that you're not going to be at the bottom of the AFC East anymore, And so yeah, I'll go 2-2. I'll say we beat Miami, maybe beat New England, I hope, or steal one of these away games. Again, like, any given Sunday is the most important thing to remember through all of this. Like, these are way too early predictions, but any given Sunday,
no one would have said
1-3. and they may beat Denver, and lose the other three.
Exactly. No one would have said that the Jets would have beaten the Titans that were red hot or the Bengals last year. And both those games, they came away with wins. There's going to be results here that we don't expect, but for the sake of just the fun of it. And Teddy, we were worried about not having a long enough show with the way this has gone. I think we're going to do just fine with time on this one.
Why are we still pretty early?
I mean, we're what, maybe 40 minutes in, and we're only halfway through the schedule. I'm saying we're doing well.
We like to give the people lots of our voices.
Exactly. So this is where things start to get no, they don't. Honestly, we had it broken down by months, but when you look at the stretch quick,
now I'm all confused.
When you look at the stretch of at Green Bay, at Denver, hosting New England, hosting the Bills, at New England, that stretch sucks.
Yeah, but the bye week thrown in there.
If you break it down and you just take a look at month 3 as, we're hosting Buffalo, the Bills. We go to New England. Oh yeah, bye week. You go to New England, and then you have the Bears and the Vikings on deck. That's not as bad as when you include Green Bay and Denver beforehand, but I think we're in agreement with Buffalo. They're a juggernaut.
There's no way that you can sit here in May and be like, I think the Jets are going to beat Buffalo. If you're just projecting the season like that, it doesn't make sense.
That's all we're doing. We're not saying what's going to happen. We're just taking a look at the schedule and saying, based on what we know about these teams, here's what we think.
It'll be sick when we beat them twice and say fuck you to all the Bills fans. But yeah, I mean, Buffalo is a juggernaut, and it's so goddamn annoying. But at least I have Bills. I can't decide if because I have a bunch of friends who are Bills because I went to college in kind of Western New York, and it's just I hate the Bills, and it annoys me that they get to be happy and I don't. But at the same time, I kind of feel for them because it's just, I mean, they were dealing with the same shit we were dealing with 3 years ago, and they're kind of that blueprint of them and the Bengals, and it's just even kind of the Chiefs. I mean, they weren't really great for a few years, and it's it's possible to rise out of the ashes,
Well, and that's the thing, and I think the Jets could find themselves in a situation like the Bills where first 2 years or first year and a half of Josh Allen were rough, and the first season of Zach Wilson was rough. If you stick with that guy and he ends up Josh Allen, people are taking ahead of Mahomes in fantasy drafts. People are saying if you're taking a quarterback for the next 10 years, there are people that are saying Josh Allen. Now, I'm not going to say
I think I'll say that.
I'll say that they're right around each other. I think Josh Allen provides a little bit more in the run game. And if you go back, and Teddy, you know this personally, just because he was in the Darnold draft, I have been a Josh Allen guy since day one. And
it's because they look alike. Go check out the YouTube.
Yeah, a little bit. We look a
lot of it. It's crazy.
It's funny.
You look like a lot of people, and they're all good looking. It's mad annoying.
Yeah, but I'm not the good looking versions of them. It's he's an uglier Josh Allen, or what does your dad always give me? Your dad always gives me.
He thinks you look exactly like Ryan Gosling.
But when he says that, he says he knows it's a lesser version.
I don't know. I think my dad's got a crush on you.
So I do love your dad. He's the best.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
So anyways, with the Bills, I think what we're just saying here is projecting the season, they're one of the best teams in football. So we can't sit here and be like, oh yeah, the Jets got him.
Yeah, that's tough. And then obviously, we just touched on New England, it's a toss up, and obviously we're going to be in Gillette Stadium, and they're a really good team, and it'll be cold, but I mean, the Chicago game, I won't even say the Minnesota game because I respect Minnesota, but the Chicago game, that's our fucking Super Bowl, because we better win 40-0 and put Justin Fields on his ass over and over again, which is funny because there was a lot of months where I thought Justin Fields was going to be our quarterback last year,
Yeah. It seemed like that for a really long time. And that's the fun part of the schedule. You take a look at some of the top matchups. We get to see a lot of these rookie quarterbacks of a year ago go against each other. You got Trevor Lawrence coming up at the end. Mac Jones, you're going to play against him twice a year for however long. And here you get Justin Fields, which is probably the little bit more rare one. And then hopefully one day we get to see this Jets team take on Trey Lance. But yeah, that's going to be a fun one. It's the guy that we, like you said, for months was okay, if we don't get Trevor Lawrence, you're going to get Justin Fields. And then the way that Zach Wilson kind of just burst onto the scene, it was okay, nope, now Zach Wilson's our guy. So that'll be fun to get the Bears, but we were talking about this before.
Do you think the Bears are going to be the worst team in football?
No, I don't. I think there are going to be teams that are worse than them. I don't think they're. I mean,
Are those teams the Lions and the Jags? Because they're on our schedule too.
The Lions are kind of frisky. Lions are kind of frisky.
No, I think so too. Listen, and I think
frisky.
I think it's very likely Trevor Lawrence bounce back too. I'm just trying to think who's going to be worse than the Bears. I'm not really sure. Who is going
to be the worst?
I think they're going to be the worst. I don't know, man.
It could be them.
I think it's going to be the Bears, which is unfortunate. Like, I feel like Justin Fields is kind of getting screwed, but I mean, we're watching what Justin Fields is going through, and it's what the Jets have been stuck with, you know, in this cycle of just like getting a quarterback and not doing anything to help him, you know. And it's just like, when you sit and we're a year removed from these guys getting drafted, and you look at what the Jets have and what the Jets have done in 2 years, and what the Bears have and what the Bears have done in 2 years. Like, I just can't imagine, like if you're a Chicago Bears fan and you look at that objectively, like, the Jets have blown you out of the water, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just think it's one of those things where
he doesn't have receivers. Justin Fields has 0 receivers.
I know, like, Darnold, I mean, I like Darnell Mooney, but I think he's more of a wide receiver too, who needs someone to help him out.
I'm going to say Houston is worse than Chicago, and I'm going to say Seattle's going to be around there.
Ooh, I think
like Seattle's. That. I think Seattle's going to be like a bottom.
Even if Geno's the QB.
I think more so.
We play Seattle too.
I know you've got Seattle on the schedule.
I hate Drew Lock.
I love Drew Lock. He's my boy.
This has been a fun episode because we just get to drop takes about all these other teams.
I know. I like it. So this month, I guess we'll get back on here. We kind of I think agree the most part. Chicago, like you said, the Super Bowl. The roster doesn't compete. This is the team that you've got to beat. You got to beat them convincingly. And they're just a team that, when you look at the way that the roster is set up, they're in a total rebuild, and they should be. And it's what happens when you clean house with a front office and a head coach, and then you do nothing in free agency. They were one of the quietest teams in free agency, and you can just tell that they're just saying, hey, look, Justin, we know it's going to be rough. Stick through. You're our guy. Hopefully, I guess they could move on after 2 years, but I think he's talented enough where they shouldn't. But
I'd agree.
Yep. New England's going to be tough. You got to win one of those two. It's going to be one of them. I like that you get a New England out of the way pretty quick. It's not like you have to face them early and then late.
I'm so sick of what I'll say about this schedule as a whole is that, number one, I love that week 1 we're not playing a divisional game finally, and I think we wait till week 5 to play a divisional game. Yep. And I mean, we play New England twice in like 4 weeks, but with a bye week thrown in there. I do just like it. Just the way this schedule's set up with the divisional games, and like last year, it was like, okay, well, we play. I think like it was like we play the Bills twice in the end of the season, and like the Patriots twice in the beginning of the season. Or I don't remember exactly, but I think it's very more spaced out and very more like let's build up to our divisional games and really, you know, hopefully they mean something.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Heading into week 5 and say these teams are all doing well in the division. It builds up the, it's always good to be in. I know you would rather just be the team that's coasting in your division all the time, but when you can say that, okay, no, 6 games out of the year, we're getting tested. We're being tested by our divisional opponents. That makes you feel a little bit better about who you are as a team. The only other one that we haven't really touched on is Minnesota. And they're, to me, and I have it down in my own, they're a little frisky. I kind of like the fact that they are moving on in this new era and they're going offense based. You know, they bring in the offensive coordinator. What's his? Oh, fuck. I'm not going to remember. Kevin O'Connell from Los Angeles. They're just going hyper power offense. O'Connell, kind of from the McVay tree that worked with Cousins back in his time in Washington. Obviously great receiving talent, a good running back, offensive line and defense. I'm still like, it's fine. It should be a team that the Jets beat. That's what I'll say. But, you know, you're going it's on the road, right? Or do you host?
Yep. Nope.
On the road, traveling out to Minnesota. Could be that's a game where I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if they get crushed and the offense just goes off, or if the Jets somehow pull out a win.
Yeah, I think that last kind of statement exactly nails it. I think I'm personally a guy who is always higher on Kirk Cousins than everyone else. It seems like I'm a kind of guy who like like him and like Derek Carr kind of, it's like if you're good enough to be playing quarterback every year over and over again, and you know, can show that you're like prolific at least a little, and are able to lead a high powered offense. I mean, good for you.
He was almost a
like
Jet.
I'm not going to I'm not going to talk bad about that. That's interesting.
He was almost a Jet.
But I mean, my thoughts on this are kind of similar to a lot of it, and you know, it might sound redundant, but it's just like these middle of the pack teams who like aren't necessarily elite or aren't necessarily terrible. It's like, this is where we need to show up. You know, like these are the teams that we need. These are the games we need to start winning to flip from, you know, a 4 or 5 win season to a 8 or 9 or 10 win season. You know, it's like it doesn't always, like, we don't have to go and beat the Bills twice this year. You know, like, sure, I would love to, but I'm not going to say that's like a must and that we need to take that step. But the step we do need to see is like, I mean, I'm trying to look for like middle of the pack teams, but it's like maybe some of these AFC North teams, you know, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, the Ravens, like, and I'm not trying to say any of these teams are not elite. What I'm just trying to say that we need to start winning these games against these teams that are in the middle, because that's where we want to be. And
right,
when you look at our schedule, Minnesota seems like one of the easier games, you know, and it's like, they're not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination, but they're not as good as the other teams. So it's kind of just one of those where you need it. So let's just take a second here. What games are we talking about? Like what's my prediction? Buffalo, New England, Chicago, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you gonna do
Here we
2
go,
and
boys.
2?
Here we go, boys. The Jets are going 3-1 on this stretch with the bye week. They're beating New England. They're beating Chicago. They're beating Minnesota. They're going to be 3-0 on a hot streak going into Buffalo at 1 p.m. on December 11th. And I'm going 3-1.
So are you having them sweep New England?
Sure. Fuck New England.
I like it. Fuck New England. I'm going to go.
I'm literally making my predictions on the fly, just so everyone's aware.
Do you see what I have?
1 and 3.
I have 1 and 3.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
I put in parentheses, could be 2 and 2.
This is all, like we said, though, like it's just, it's so hard to predict. And none of the things that you're saying and your reasoning for them to be 1 and 3 in this stretch, like, are wrong, you know? And again, it's, as we're going through the schedule, I'm kind of realizing it's harder than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, you look at, like we were saying, the first 9 weeks are hard. Realistically, I mean, through week 14, like we have a game against Miami, Chicago, and Minnesota, and like those are the easiest opponents.
Those are the
play,
3
and
most
maybe the Steelers
games.
You know, and it's like, that's tough, and it takes us. I will say our ending stretch of 4 games is a lot easier. But
not including the second time we played Buffalo.
No, right, yeah.
Buffalo,
our whole
we just
strategy
consider
of months gets fucked with this math. We should just call this episode like fuck math or something.
Fuck math.
Like, I did not expect to be this confused. Clip that.
Yeah. So the final
18
5
game schedule is really getting to me.
It is.
And I'm one of those people who hates when people say shit like that, but here I fucking am.
It did break your brain. All right. Well, yes. Okay. So I have the Jets right now at 4-8 on the season. I'm trying to think 3-1.
I have them at like 7 and 5.
Nice.
Fuck yeah.
All right. So we head into the final 5 games. This is where it gets easy-ish. You get the Buffalo game out of the way. And then to me, I mean, if this is a team that is in the hunt by the time, this is where they can maximize up on it, because you've got hosting Detroit, hosting Jacksonville, at Seattle, and then finishing the season in Miami against the Dolphins. Most fun matchups to me in this stretch. Saleh versus Campbell. That's going to be a fun one. Both hired in the same offseason. Both were in the running for, I believe, both jobs. Saleh was like, there was a stretch there where Saleh was like, okay, yep, I'm going back home to Detroit. I grew up outside the stadium. Like, there was a lot of buzz that he was going to be the guy there. Obviously, they go Dan Campbell. 2 very big meathead football guys. So that's just going to be a fun head coaching matchup.
Yeah. And I think that the Lions are probably going to be better than a lot of people think. And I don't
be better than the Bears.
Yeah,
Could
I
be
don't
even
think
better
that
than the
means like they're
Vikings.
going to be great, but I do think it means that they're going to, you know, they're just one of those teams where like you have a guy like Dan Campbell and they kind of remind me of the Jets, like maybe not in the way they've been doing stuff, but just the way that they want guys that kind of fit that culture of, I mean, it's a little different in Detroit, but they want guys who are like really hungry and after it and really intense and you know, and the Jets are looking for these guys who love football and love the work and want to put in the work, and it just seems kind of similar to me. Um so that's cool. And yeah, I mean, I think the Salah Campbell matchup is great. I think there's a lot of like fun players. You know, Jameson Williams will be back healthy by this point. I really like DeAndre Swift. You know, they have a few good guys on that defense. I just think that it's one of those games where like Detroit's not as bad as you think, but at the same time, like again, this is really where it's kind of just like a okay, Jets, like these are the type of things where you really need to show like how do you show you're a good team? You beat up on the bad teams, you know. So hopefully we can get it done against Detroit. And then, well, do you have any thoughts on Detroit? I apologize. I was about to jump right into Jacksonville.
No, with Detroit, I agree. You're hosting them. It's going to be later in the season. I'm not a big golf guy. I think that they're
Yeah, me neither.
probably,
That's kind of where the biggest differentiation comes.
to me, they're a team where like I don't know, and the Jets could very well be in this way if their season doesn't fall out and they're picking in the top again. We've talked about that. This how attached are they to Zach Wilson? I think that's a huge thing. I think the Lions are less attached to Jared Goff, where they're in this final stretch of the season. Goff could be playing very well much for his starting career in the NFL. So a lot could be hinging on things for him. If they're at the top of the draft, they could be looking at, at who their next quarterback is going to be. So it'll be interesting to see, because you have them so late. Say they're off to a really terrible start, this thing could be in the can for them, kind of like last year. But Campbell's one of those guys he's not going to worry about where they're drafting. He's going to want to win every game. So no, I respect the Lions. I kind of love their offseason. I love their offense. I don't know much.
Me too.
I don't know if I necessarily
I love their
their
jerseys
defense at the
too.
moment. Jerseys are cool, but yeah, I think the wide receiving group of Monroe St. Brown, Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift, good offensive line, TJ Hawkinson, like it should be easy for Goff. So it's gonna be a fun game. And then yeah, let's move into Jacksonville. What are your thoughts on the Jags?
Yeah, I mean, it brings us to game right before Christmas, Thursday night, our only primetime game of the season. I think it's kind of cool that we get the Thursday night game the week before Christmas when we're about to have, I forgot exactly what the deal is, but I think there's like a full slate of games on Saturday and then Christmas on Sunday, and there's 3 games, or maybe that's so. Flipped.
Because at the end
cool,
they start
where like
in
Christmas is going to be a blast.
Yeah.
And but it's kind of cool that like I'll get to enjoy all those games like during Christmas, and I'll be able to do all the Christmas stuff, but then we'll have that Jets kind of day a few days before that to really just focus on the Jets. I will say it's kind of like, obviously Jets fans are all disappointed we only get the one primetime game. But I love when the Jets play at 1:00. I don't know why. And I think, I mean, it's the matchup, or the what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, like the revenge from last year of Jacksonville's and Trevor Lawrence, it's probably going to be a little extra special to him. He wants to show and bounce back and beat us after we beat them. I think it's very possible Trevor Lawrence looks a lot better this year. The Jags look a lot better this year just because of the dumpster fire they were. But at the same time, like, I don't think they made the necessary moves to improve the way the Jets did. I don't think their receiving core is scary. I don't. I mean, I think their running backs are good for sure, but they don't really like scare me as a team, and they don't seem like they're going to be able to like throw the ball successfully too much. Not because of Trevor Lawrence, but just because I don't think they really have that much talent in where they put their money. I mean, I think Christian Kirk's making like $100 million or something.
He started the fucking train of every receiver needing a new contract.
And then they signed someone else, Zay Jones, maybe.
The boy.
It seems very reminiscent of like what the Patriots did last year, signing Aguilar and the other guy.
Well,
But
yeah, they paid their tight ends, and then
right,
yeah,
and
so they went very
it,
heavy on offense, but it was guys
it
that
just
you're
seemed like
like,
they were like
nah,
overpaying, like kind of like
right.
third string, like number three receivers, which kind of looks like what Jacksonville's doing here. So I don't know. I think this should be a good win, and I hope it kind of like breaks this primetime curse that we have, where every time people don't realize how important like primetime games are to what the national fan bases think of your team. Like one of
Yeah.
the reasons the Jets are such a dumpster fire, and maybe other teams like Jacksonville or Detroit, who've also struggled these past few years, aren't viewed in that light, is because every time the Jets take center stage and the whole world's watching, they blow it. And
Hmm.
so it's just like we really, again, it's like what's funny about projecting the season is it comes down to like, are they going to take the step or are they not? Are some of these guys going to start hitting or are they going to be underwhelming? And it's like, so here we go, like time to time to really show up, and maybe we can put a beating on these guys.
Yeah, I agree. It should be a winnable game. I think the Jags at the very least are culturally much improved. If you want to give them at least some sort of credit as to what they've done this offseason, I think you couldn't have gotten a better guy than Doug Peterson to really home things in and kind of try and change the outlook for the organization, because it did reach kind of an all-time low with Urban Meyer last year. But yeah, I think it's one of those ones where you said it earlier. When you take a look at the rosters and you take a look at the teams you should be beating, this is a team that the Jets should be beating in 2022. So I don't need to add much more onto what you said. Primetime game, get it done. I
Mm-hmm.
like what you said about it's not really about the team itself. It's how the league views the team, or how the other fan bases view the team. And if you get the chance to watch the Jets once and they get smoked 40-10, that changes. I guess a lot of people will just be like, it's the goddamn Jets again. So yeah, I'll take that game as a win. Traveling out to Seattle, the Jamal Adams revenge game probably won't even be healthy by this point of the season. Probably going to shut things down for another surgery or something. But
That'd be sweet.
could be
I
hilarious.
hate that guy.
He's just become one of the, it's funny. It's Blitz Boy now. He's the defensive version of Michael Thomas, where everybody, you're good at one thing, and that's the only thing that you get recognized for now. And he's overpaid. He complains. He's very dramatic. I don't know. What do you think? Because there was a point,
Yeah,
hand
where I
up,
loved him.
you loved him.
No, for sure. And I do think that it's like he gets more crap than he probably deserves, and he's a better player than kind of
Yeah,
what Jets fans give him, and maybe even the national media gives him.
for sure.
I think it's kind of one of those things like where this is like a high draft pick who we then traded for 2 firsts and a third, and then they signed him to they extended his contract, because obviously, I mean, you trade 2 first round draft picks for a guy, you kind of have to. But so it's like at this point he is just so overpaid for what his value to a team is. And like the fact that he is this blitz boy, and like he really isn't all that good in coverage. And it's just
terrible.
like at some point it's like, okay, if Seattle's really creating their defense around Jamal Adams, it might even be hindering them, because maybe you're running a different defense where you have a safety who can really be more of a normal safety. Maybe it would be a little better for them. But I mean, I kind of agree with you. I just, it's hard for me to have any positive expectations for the Seahawks just because of their quarterback room, because of kind of the question marks at running back. Like, I know they just signed Kenneth Walker and they have Rashad Penny, and maybe Chris Carson will ever play again. But all those guys are definitely like Chris Carson literally might never play again. I mean, I have no reason to think he will. And Rashad Penny was bad and had a good few games last year, but it's just like, I don't know. I think they're going to be a bad team. I don't think they're going to be able to turn it around. I think Pete Carroll and the way he runs his offense has been holding back Russ like more than the other way around. And I think number one, this should be a very winnable game just in general. And number two, I think it should mean a lot to the Jets because of, I mean, how important that deal with Jamal Adams was and what we have now. I mean, you look at what it really turned into, and it was Elijah Vera Tucker and Garrett Wilson. I mean, Like those are two guys that we really need to be cornerstones of the offense, you know? So I think this is, you know, I look at this as a game they win. Like I really have maybe I'm doubting Seattle too much, but I just think they're going to stink.
I think
which you agree with.
Yeah, I agree with Pete Carroll. He hasn't been afraid before to blow this whole thing up. They legitimately were on the doorstep it was 4 years ago now. They were going to trade Russell Wilson to the Cleveland Browns, and they were going to draft Josh Allen and just start the whole damn thing over. That's was going to happen. They offered, I'm not sure if it was Russ and picks, but that was a deal that was on the table. And it's crazy to think Cleveland, instead of, you know, ended up going the route of taking Baker Mayfield instead. And now they're in this situation. They could have had Russ. They could have had Josh Allen. They could have had a ton of different options, but
Sam Darnold.
Now they've got Deshaun Watson. Yeah, exactly. Quentin Nelson. But anyways, he was the guy that
I get it. I get it. Ha!
That was a fun trade.
Anyways, I see, like, yeah, whatever.
You still do that deal trying to take a quarterback. We don't need to talk about that trade.
No, that's true. But then it's like, that sucked when you guys broke us. But now that we've broken Seattle, it's just fine. Like, I don't care anymore, you know?
Yeah, you're off the Sam Darnold era.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry,
so
Sammy boy.
The Seattle one, when they're at that point of the season, I truly think that they are all, whether or not they can't view Locke or Smith or anybody on that roster as the long-term future at quarterback.
Maybe
if you're sitting there in week 17, I know you love Geno. We all love Geno.
We're Jets
sitting there. When you're sitting there week 17 and you're last in your division, you're inching toward a top pick, and you know that 5 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round at the very minimum next year. It's going to be like that class where Darnold, Rosen, Allen, Mayfield, Lamar all went. It's going to be a class that's like that, if not maybe even more, where you're picking matters. And I don't think Pete isn't going into this season thinking we need to be competitive because I'm an old guy. He's understanding, like, no, we can blow things up and restart. He doesn't seem to really care about it because we saw that he was willing to trade away, you know, at Russell Wilson at his peak almost to just take a shot on Josh Allen. So I think you're sitting at that point. They're going to be a bad team. They're going to be last in their division. I almost think it would be a rollover game. Just taking a look at rosters. And I think the Jets have a better roster. So they'll get the win there. They'll get it over Jamal Adams a little bit. Nice revenge there. And then finish off the season, Teddy. I'm not going to say that the Jets are going to be sitting here like win and get into the playoffs, but like this could be some great dramatics.
That's the hope. I mean, when you look at this last game against Miami in Miami, I think that number one, the first thing that sticks out when I just think of this game, what's like in my brain right now is Jason Taylor, you know, because he had all that time in Miami and then he spent a year with the Jets and then he went back to Miami and it just, that's when I really like as a Jets fan, you know, and that's kind of around when I became a Jets fan in like 08, 09, 010. That's not how you say that, but
10.
The Miami rivalry is one that like I really, really want to like bring back, you know, because like we all have the rivalry with the Patriots, so it doesn't really feel like our own thing. And like Jets Miami in the history of the NFL is one of the biggest rivalries in the league, you know, if you just look at the NFL overall. So I would really, I mean, can you imagine if they're sitting there and somehow like both these teams are in the hunt and we're fighting, even if it's for that 7th spot. I mean, that 7th playoff spot really adds a lot of parity to the league, just because like you look at last year, like there were a lot of teams that didn't make the playoffs, maybe not a lot, but there's a few teams that didn't make the playoffs. I think
I know you're not
that
doing
were
it
better.
on purpose, but
I mean the Colts, the Chargers, like those were teams that I definitely thought were better than the Steelers. And what do you know, the Steelers got in. And then you look at like I'm thinking of the Eagles, but I think the Dallas won their division. Yeah, so the Eagles, and I mean like Eagles they didn't really seem like they belonged either. And so I'm not trying to say that we don't belong there. All I'm trying to say is that 7th team really adds a much bigger chance. And so it's like, can you imagine if we're sitting here week 18 against Miami in Miami and we're playing for a playoff spot? That would be sweet. and I guess I'll just go for it here. So these last 5 games, I want to say 4-1, just because when I look at it, I say lost to Buffalo in week 14, and then followed up with a win against Detroit, win against Jacksonville, win against Seattle, win against Miami. What I'm going to say, similar to the way I was kind of saying it about, a few wins that we're going to steal, is I don't think it's unlikely that there's, some losses that get stolen as well. That's just kind of the way it is. So I'll go 3-2 here to finish that out. And I think that puts me right at 10-7. Which to me is like that. Like, I think what a lot of fans keep saying is 8-9, 9-8. And I think that's kind of just like what you have to say. But that 10-7 mark is kind of like okay, well, we weren't just like better. We weren't just middle of the pack. Like, we're 3 games above 500. And I think that would feel really good. Obviously, I'm an optimist. Obviously, it's going to require a lot of hitting for these Jets players. And just because of how, the offense is all young guys, and then the defense is all new guys, essentially, is how it feels, So it's like, for sure, there's question marks. And for sure, you can't just sit here. We're all excited about what the roster looks like, and we're all excited about the talent on this team. You can't just sit here and say that they're definitely going to be good. You can't. And realistically, not everyone's going to hit. Not all of our draft picks are going to hit. And that's not what you want to hear. But, this is what I'm going with, and I really do, in my opinion, I really see the Jets offense taking a step that's gonna be noticeable, and I also think that the defense is going to be far from 32nd in the league. So I just think I think the path to a much much better season, and potentially a 10-7 season. Or what's nice about this is I was being kind of generous, and I'm at 10-7. So maybe we go 9-8 or 8-9, but to me, those are still pretty acceptable years.
Definitely, I think anything from 7-10 is acceptable.
I'd agree.
I'm gonna switch. I had written 3-2 here. I'm gonna say the Miami sweep happens. I like the quarterback more. Not to say that I don't like the new head coach over in Miami, McDaniels, right? McDaniel, mm-hmm. Yeah, Mike McDaniel. I like Salah a lot. I like the offensive line better. I like the running game better. I'm going to say we get the Dolphin sweep. I'm going to put 4-1 in the final stretch, finishing 8-9 on the season.
Ooh, spicy.
Don't know what that means. I like 8-9. I
thought you were going to be lower than that going into this pod.
I had 7-10 finally here. I'm gonna go 8-9. That final stretch, man, and that's my biggest point with the schedule. My final question to you, I guess, before we can wrap things up: would you rather be the team if this schedule was flipped, if it was reversed, and this easy half was in the first half? Would you rather be the team that starts blazing hot and then they face some real tough competition and it fades out, or would you be the team kind of like the Jets were last year? Not that it translated to a ton of wins, but where it's slow, and then look at how they finished the season. What would you rather as a fan?
Yeah, that's a hard question.
That's tough, right?
And
it's the same result at the end of the day, but it's a different outlook.
Yeah, but I guess I'm gonna kind of have a cop-out answer where like it doesn't really matter. It's like you look at the Dolphins last year, and they started 1-7. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think they won their first game and then lost 7 and then won 7.
Yeah, because they played you week 1, didn't they? Or no?
No,
they didn't. No, they didn't play you week 1. They played New England.
Because they played New England the past 3 years, which is again like maybe change it up, guys.
Yeah, switch.
But anyways, but no, I mean that's a hard question because realistically, like both of those suck more than just like wins intermittently. No, I mean like even like just spread them out a little.
If it was
like that's better because it's like sure it would be crazy to win like 7 games in a row, but if you already dug yourself in that 1-7 hole, that's gonna suck. I guess I'd probably rather have that than being 7-1 and then ending like 7-10, or 8-9. Like that would suck. But I do that was what Blake kind of his big point to me when we were talking to the schedule is just like it would feel so different if the schedule is flipped. And I just want to kind of like lay the lists out there just to kind of like put a bow on it. But when you look at the schedule as a whole, and we'll go weeks 1 through 11, and that's a long ass time.
It's
But weeks
most of
1
it.
through 11, it's Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Miami, Green Bay, Denver, New England, Buffalo, bye week, New England. And I mean, like that, like again, it's like Miami is the team there that seems like the breath of like the, oh my God, I can breathe again. And we don't even know if we're gonna beat Miami. You know, they could be pretty good. Like they have good players on their team. And so now I'll take you week 12 through 18. This is gonna sound a lot different. Chicago, Minnesota, Buffalo, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle, Miami. I mean, like the difference in those lists is absurd, especially
It's
once
ridiculous.
like take out the division games, and it's like, all right, we have Seattle, Jacksonville, Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago compared to Green Bay, Denver, and the entire AFC North. Like those are different.
It's crazy.
You know,
it's a tough
and
schedule.
that's why like the first 4 weeks, like we absolutely cannot start 0-4. And if we do start 1-3, it's like, well, then we better be beating Miami and we better figure it out against one of these other Green Bay, Denver, New England. You know, it's like,
yeah,
I just really a 2-2 start would feel good.
it would, especially after the years of 0-4. And yeah, I
every year feels like we've been 0-4 for my life. And I know that's not true remotely, but that's how it feels at the moment.
It's interesting from a Jets perspective, because to me, for the Colts last year, we started out slow, we got really hot, and then we still ended up missing the playoffs.
And then you lost to the Jaguars.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. That's actually going to be one of those memories that lives with me forever. That memory is going to be like
that's your week 15 against the Bills. I mean, and like the Bills were a bad team. They weren't the worst team in the league, but they were a bad team. But I remember last year, and here we go. Let's be a Colts pod for a second. Yeah. I remember last year at one point literally being like, are the Colts the best team in the AFC?
They were like,
on fire. It seems so absurd, but they were just like, it just seemed like they had so much talent, and it didn't even matter if Carson Wentz wasn't the best because he was doing fine, you know? Yeah. And then like I remember, I think they lost that second to last week. I don't remember against who.
Oakland or Vegas. Yeah. It was a game-winning field goal we lost.
And it's like, all right, well, we can just beat Jacksonville and we're in. And I remember being like, well, they're gonna beat them, and then they didn't, you know. And that's the beauty of the NFL, man. Any given Sunday. So that's why this whole fucking schedule thing doesn't even matter.
That had to be one of like the biggest. Yeah, that's a great point. This entire podcast we did, none of it matters. If you listen, thank you for listening through to this.
Yeah, thank you for listening. And what I loved about it is it gave us the opportunity to kind of like touch on all these other teams that we're playing. Yeah, you know, even more so than like what we think about the Jets. It's what we think about these other teams, which is it was really fun. You know, I think this is a really fun episode.
Definitely. We were talking about the Colts one. I don't know. Thinking about games that may have haunted me in the past, I reached a point this past year and within the last 2 years where I became a very addicted sports gambler. And when I tell you I had everything in my life attached to the Colts money line, like I would just place a random bet on a game and I would just parlay it with the Colts money line. Cause I was just like, yeah, that's a given.
That'll happen. Which is funny because it was probably like minus like 800 or something.
It was.
Probably it added nothing. You like $8 to your
changed
parlay.
Nothing for me, and I still ended up. It cost me everything. That is one of those games. It's just like it's a stunner. But anyway, so what you finished 10-7 there. 7. I went 8-9. It should be in that range. If it's anything lower than 7-10, that's where things are like problematic. Yeah. And I wouldn't say from like a coaching perspective, but I definitely would say so in a Zach perspective.
Yeah, I think that's kind of if Zach Wilson isn't able to improve, like the Jets should be better. If Zach Wilson plays exactly as well as he played last year, the Jets should still be a better team, you know, and maybe one game better of a win record. But like if he can take a step, even just to becoming a good quarter, like a middle of the road quarterback, you know, like even just Kirk to be Cousins. A 15, 16 best quarterback, they should be able to win 7 games, you know, and then go ahead and add wins as Zach's year is better. You know what I mean? So it's like, we've talked about this a lot, but it's like I don't see how you can place the blame on Joe Douglas. I think Joe Douglas has done everything correctly. He's done everything smart. He's done everything well. And I don't think that I mean, like, I personally think Sal's the man. Who knows if we have another 5 in whatever year, how we're all going to view him. But it really does seem like this is like a make or break year for Zach, where if we're not playing well, it's kind of his fault, and that's how it feels.
The teams that started this trend, and even they held on too long. And I've been a proponent, if you don't got your guy, kick him to the curb. And it's unfortunate for the player, but you can't. The Rams and the Eagles, and even they gave second contracts to Goff and Wentz, but they started this thing where it's like, no, if your young quarterback just doesn't have it, you don't owe him a second contract. You don't owe him the 5th-year option. The Browns are moving off of Baker Mayfield before his second contract. Like, teams are
look where the Giants have been with Daniel Jones. It's like,
they've committed too long.
Stop hoping. Yeah, and you could say it's 2 years too long at this point. Like, the fact that he's going to be the starter next year, to me, is just like mind-blowing, because I never would have thought that.
And it's a little different for the Jets because the regime had changed, but they cut ties with Darnold pretty quickly, wouldn't you say, given all things considered? Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, with the new coach, it lined up.
You just flush it right out. So I guess they had a little bit easier. But sometimes I think it's based on who's available. If there was a top quarterback prospect in this class, you don't think the Giants with picks 5 and 7 probably take him? Whoever. No,
that's true. That's true.
So a lot of it does depend on who's available. But I do think that we're in this era now where it's like, okay, if year 2 of Zach Wilson is done, this team is talented. And it should just need an average quarterback. It
really feels like we're like a quarterback of a way to be. Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of it, and the scariness of it is if Zach Wilson can just be an average quarterback plus, that'll be great. And if he can't, that'll really hurt my feelings.
That'll suck. Yeah. You'll be on to your next jersey, your Bryce Young jersey.
God, I don't want to buy another jersey, bro. I'm trying to wear the Zach one forever.
I haven't bought a jersey in a bit.
Yeah.
I should get a Jonathan Taylor one.
Yeah, you should. He's a stud.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get out of here.
Yep. Yeah, that was we still were able to turn that into a long one. Thank you guys so much for listening to Chasing 69, a New York Jets podcast. I said at the beginning, follow us on Twitter at NYJ_chasing69, at YouTube with the same page. I'm at Blake Andrew Pace on Twitter. Teddy's at Teddy Huncho. Teddy Huncho, where did I wasn't around you when that,
like Quavo Huncho.
I know, but like that was a Fisher nickname.
One of my buddies just called me it, and I thought it was sick. It's actually like, well, it's a good nickname for sure.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Peace.